Good evening and welcome back, dear friends of ESSERE, back here on this channel. Tonight we have a very important appointment. As I had already mentioned, the press office of the High Plans. Tonight's press office is top-notch in the sense that it does what a press office is supposed to do, gather information and deliver it to the people. The information this evening is very important. In the meantime, I send a warm greeting to all of you. I see that many of you are already here, and I want to thank you. Thank you infinitely for your affection, for your closeness, and for the passion you have in following these paths, the desire. You have to walk together, and this is what matters most of all. This is the goal of all the volunteering that we all do. I also thank all our friends from the staff who help and support us in this service. So I thank Stefania Ferrero, Felice Perari, Giuseppe Auer, dear Riccardo Casari, who is also present and with us. And then there is also Sylvia from Luxulade who is with us. We are all always ready to work as a team to carry forward this project which, as I repeat, is a service project. It is a project of help. In our position as a channel, as beings, the goal is a single one, to offer a service, to provide help. We do not offer products. This is our only intention, and so we are all very happy to be here with you to do our job. And speaking of tasks, as I mentioned earlier, on Monday, that is, 2 days ago, Riccardo Casari arrived in Turin, and we worked with Ariel Sue. At Ariel's request, as he had said, he wanted to speak to me, specifically, regarding the opening of the new portals, and he needed to tell me things that I should handle as the press office of the High Plans, as I have been doing for over 23 years, to bring you this information. So, I have transcribed everything. We have transcribed all the discussions, which were quite lengthy, covering various other topics as well. Anyway, we did it. You know that we record every time. I mention this also for those who might be tuning in for the first time, who follow the press office of the High Plans. I remember that my role as a journalist has changed over the past 23 years because 23 years ago, I received what is called a calling during a channeling session in front of several people. At an association that focused on spiritual paths, I was asked by Ariel, the entity that calls itself Ariel, as it says, they use names that may be familiar to us with a single purpose, for us to listen to what they have to say so that we can benefit from their messages. Therefore, their name is truly a fictional matter. In fact, Ariel always tells me that often the name is divisive because many say they are speaking with Ariel, right? So, it is not the name that matters, but the knowledge that is brought. So, in these 23 years, more than 23 years ago, in this association, there was Francesco, who was another modem, as I jokingly say, the previous channel, that existed until almost 3 years ago. Then he chose not to continue any longer. And so Ariel and his brothers went to look for a new channel to allow, as he says, my soul to continue doing what was its task, which is to keep their knowledge moving. Of course, I am not the only person on the face of the earth who is experiencing this, who is on this journey, which is a journey of the soul, a journey of service, specifically to help the evolution of humanity. Anyway, 23 years ago, as they say, I received the call to, which I said yes, and I have never betrayed my yes. So here I am this evening, continuing to carry forward their information. For those who know nothing about it, you can search online or in bookstores, even better because this way we support the bookstores, which, unfortunately, are a bit on the brink due to the current crisis, as many people buy online and no longer go to bookstores to make purchases. Instead, it is very nice to go to the bookstore anyway. Look for 2 books that I always say are 2 books that we should all have in our homes, because they are what we need to live our lives. The important thing is to have guidance, and these 2 books, one is Two Dual Hands, The Extraordinary Interview with Arcangelo, and the other is The Extraordinary Manual for Living Life, published by Mediterranean Editions, are books for which I donate the rights. The charity, these 2 books truly help. They have helped many, many people, and I hope they will help you as well. I close this parenthesis for those who may be seeing me for the first time, so that they can understand a bit about the situation. I have been in contact with this entity from other dimensions for 23 years, very much related to a 5th dimension, which provides me with such precious information for our lives. The day before yesterday, it was in this meeting that we had, and we obviously addressed the current issues. It goes without saying that the global situation is not at its best. Even today, we have seen the events, and so it is not such a rosy scenario. However, at the same time, what is important to do, and what I have been asked to do, is that unlike many who instill a lot of fear and anxiety, we must not take this path. We need to embark on a journey of truth, knowledge, and hope, because it is important that we are, from a vibrational perspective, aligned with certain positions. Fear does not help at all, and above all, it does not generate fields of energy that can contribute to such difficult situations as the ones we are experiencing. So, to go in order, at the meeting the day before yesterday, Ariel said that there is a lot of work to be done now. He mentioned that one cycle has just concluded and another has opened, specifically on the 31st. We were working on Monday the 29th. The day is the 31st, so 2 days ago. He said that on the 29th of July, 2024, a new era has begun. So these are exactly his words. Why did we open the day? Portals, the great portals of light. Now the discussion is about what these portals are. For those who have followed our stages, especially at the 2nd level, we have already talked about the portals and what they are. If we need to somehow represent the portals in our minds, we should bring these portals of light, those that we call the portals of light. Well, let's say that they are nothing more than passages to the connection point with other planes of existence, because what is important for all of us is to have a broader understanding that allows us to have a more expansive vision with our minds, meaning to understand that life is not just what we are experiencing right now in this earthly dimension, and that this dimension is only the small part of a whole, and it is a small part of the many universes, and it is a small part of what constitutes the experience of this great matrix, as we might call it. This is all. Herein lies the greater reason. If we perceive ourselves as a part of this whole, we realize that with our minds we must accept and have a more expansive and open vision beyond what our senses perceive. So we need to take this path. We have no other way, or rather, fortunately, we have this way. We have these great, not just great, opportunities for expansion, for a vision of what existence truly is. Now, the portals, these portals of light, are a passage to other dimensions, which means the possibility to go beyond this dimension. Why is this done? When our body completes what is its life cycle, which has been generated and determined by the design of our soul. I always remind everyone that we are a soul experiencing a material existence through a body in an earthly dimension. So this is an essential starting point. If you are not yet able to commit to this vision, take some time. It means that it is not yet the time. Little by little, you will make your way. There is no proselytism in this, as I have already said many times. Everyone has their own time, their own evolution, which must be respected without judgment. However, we must all strive towards this evolution, towards this more advanced vision of life and existence, towards this freedom that is generated by this vision, because it lifts us from our fears, and we are free when we have no fears, when we have no needs. This is true freedom. Therefore, the portals are this opportunity that we have to be able to experience the opportunities that we have in our existence. Now, then, Ariel told me 8 months ago. I'm not sure if I had mentioned it in any previous press office. He said in December that in 8 months we will open a great portal of light. And I remember that when he told me this, I immediately asked the question, "But Ariel, why are you telling me this? If light portals are opened, what does the great light portal mean?" The day before yesterday, I spoke in the plural, and he asked me what that means, that there will be many souls that will leave the earth, and therefore they will pass through, making a transition, a change of dimension, right? And he told me that time would then provide explanations and indications. Now these 8 months have passed, and on the 29th of July, Oriella said, "Today, just today, we have opened these portals of light. The cycle has concluded and a new era has begun." And so I said, "Well, what does it mean that events will happen then?" As I told you 8 years ago, events for which we know that many souls may leave the body, considering the scenario that surrounds us. And he told me this, which is, I need to read their paper, because this way I have the exact wording of what he said. In fact, I even told him, but could it be that it is, for the souls that will have to cross over, or could it also be that human beings, precisely due to events that are not very pleasant that may happen, will start to question much more about the issues of life, right? Regarding who we are, the opening of the portal could also represent a change that can occur even at a mental level within us with a different perception of life. Therefore, we are opening up possibilities with our minds for expansion, for the vision of life, existence, the meaning of life, possibilities, and what the evolutions might be after this dimension. And so he, in response to my observations, confirmed that all of this would indeed serve a purpose. The events to come will also help us get closer to the essential aspects of our lives and thus the spirituality, to what is our true essence, always reminding us that we are not merely spiritual beings, that we are not souls who have a body at their disposal to realize their experimental project in this earthly dimension in order to evolve. So he confirmed all of this to me, and through these portals that they will open, we will have not only the possibility for souls that leave the body, but there will also be the opportunity for our souls to vibrate in such a way that we can perceive this boundary line between this material dimension and the immaterial one, this moment of encounter with this dimension, where there is a passage, has a timing that is very much linked to our inner evolution. Therefore, as he says, it will be an opportunity that we will have through the opening of these portals to be able to perceive these portals. He also added that it is not certain that everyone will come to perceive these portals. Some will succeed, some will cross them, some will manage to perceive them. And then there will also be those who will not perceive them at all. I was watching a thank you. What he said is that not everyone will arrive in the world of spirit, but many will. These are his words, but many will have the opportunity to understand what it means for matter to crumble and for the spirit to be enriched. Now, this is a very, very important passage. It is a very deeply profound passage about the crumbling of matter and the enrichment of the spirit. It means that the events we are going to witness and experience, whether directly or indirectly, will truly serve as a point of reflection that is so extremely important. When he speaks of the crumbling of matter, it means that it will help us understand that all aspects related to matter tend to lead us into a state of need, of satisfying our ego, of possession. There are all those aspects of matter that we often see in our reality, which frequently lead man down a path that is not a path of light, but a path of darkness. And the illusion of matter, of the happiness brought about by matter, where anything is done to collect matter, in essence, ultimately makes us understand that this is not the meaning of our life, because the experience of the soul in the earthly, material dimension is precisely that of living matter only as a means, not as an end. And he says that matter will crumble. So people will understand that everything they have always lived for was not what truly held so much value. he speaks of the enrichment of the spirit. The enrichment of the spirit means that we will then start asking ourselves questions. We will begin to interrogate ourselves, and we will see things that will make us question. And this passage, I repeat, has been a very profound one, because in these two words, well, the disintegration of matter, the enrichment of the spirit, in these four words there is everything. If we manage to interpret them in their essence, that is, we understand that there lies the way, that this is the indication of the path to follow, which does not mean not to use matter. Otherwise, we are here in a world of matter. However, the problem arises when matter becomes our God, our religion. So, the money, the payment, that is everything we see, the possession. And within this there is also the ego, because the ego is also a form of currency. And we see, that is, we know. Think about what the arms industry is. The arms industry that controls markets. So, it is truly important that we learn to open our eyes and minds, that we start asking ourselves questions, and that we stop living in ignorance. We are often led by events and occurrences. We are the story, and we must be the protagonists with our behaviors and our choices in this story, because each of us can do our part. And so, moving on to the topics we have addressed regarding this discussion about the portals. That being said, no, I don't want to forget certain things. So, he confirms that these changes, because I asked him questions, will also be generated, mainly by the fact that there will be such significant events that we will be forced, in short, to question ourselves. And at this point, he answered one of my questions. Another question I have is, because 2 months ago, he told me, during one of our meetings with Ricardo, in a channeling that he and I did, he told me that those few men who are in charge had decided that there would be a war, and yet there were still some hopes. Even now he has given these hopes. But the point is that there will be some delays. There are slowdowns, but certain paths cannot be avoided. However, as he tells me later, we can think about improving the situation that is indeed one of the less desirable ones and burdensome for everyone. He states that we are not moving towards peace, Therefore, there are slowdowns, but in these slowdowns, there was always hope, because what is interesting is to see how they follow the free will of men. Thus, depending on the choices that men make, things can either accelerate or slow down, or even halt, right? And so he is facing the current scenario and says that yes, there will be some things that will start which will still be somewhat limited, but then there will be expansions. However, he adds that there is still hope, that there is still, in short, an opportunity. He says that this opportunity is always a somewhat shaky matter. It is never certain. Opportunity is always a variable thing, always linked to this discourse of freedom, and he told me that this is why I wanted to talk to you today, so that you can speak to all the people who follow you, who over the years have been able to learn about all this work that you do. Ariel is always very kind. He uses very nice terms towards me, but he knows what work I have been doing for the past 23 years, which is solely a service job, a form of volunteering. I did it for 3.5 years on another channel, without holding back, serving to the best of my ability, giving my all, dedicating my time, resources, and teachings, transferring what I have, very humbly, because for me it has always been a pleasure to give others the opportunity to grow and learn. And I have taught many things where I was before, and I did it truly with my heart, with will, and without any other interest, because as you may have already understood, I do not sell anything, I do not need anything, I only provide service, service of help and nothing else. I am not interested at all. I mean, I take great care not to get involved in certain situations because I know it is not my responsibility. My task is to provide the service, bring you the information, and give everyone, those who want it, of course, an opportunity for growth. So, to continue our discussion, he says, yes, there is still hope, but when he then spoke about hope, he brought up an aspect that you all should already know very well. He spoke about prayer, and then touched on that topic again, which we have already discussed. He continues to insist and says you cannot imagine the value of prayer. Of course, he is talking about the prayer of the heart, the one that comes from the heart. Because I asked, but what can we do in a scenario like this? We are not the lords of power. We are not those who hold power, yet we have power, our own power. We are not the ones who sit in certain back rooms, certain rooms of power, but nonetheless, we have power too, and so he really brought up the topic of prayer. And so, he says that, from an energetic point of view, prayers have great power, right? I just really wanted to tell you that, with his words, the use of prayer, he tells me, reveals the intent of the soul. The use of prayer is intrinsic to your nature. But what if, and when many souls, he says, there, with you on earth, begin to unite, and are in the true union of prayer, of the heart, of the energetic field that is generated, this truly means giving a great impulse and creating what we call a egregora, right? So, what can we do is the first thing, because you know how many times someone says, but what can I do? I am not there, what can I do? So we all need to remember that we can do this very important thing. First of all, it is about asking them for help through prayer, because you know they exist, and they intervene when we do not call upon them, as they respect our free will. When we ask for help, they come to assist us. So, if we truly ask for help, through prayer, asking to illuminate the minds of those who are in the decision-making rooms, to guide their minds and hearts, to make choices that are not destructive but are choices of love, there is a possibility to find a way to prevent such nefarious, atrocious, inhumane, and unspeakable events from occurring, as we have already seen them happen right here. That is the first power we have at our disposal, so it says. In the meantime, we have hope. The first hope is ours, and it is that we can do something of our own without saying, I can't do anything, and just waiting there. Let us pray. Let us pray. That is, let us all become aware that we create fields of energy through prayer. This praying means generating fields of energy, as prayer and emotion signify energy waves. And so we need to understand this, to be responsible, and to use this power that we have through prayer. So this is another thing. They were saying that this aspect of prayer, as it is also stated, has a certain power. From an energetic point of view, they say that prayers can also modify things, not everything, but perhaps they can slow down or improve situations or even prevent the worst from happening. So, prayers have their own function, you see. So, this has been another very important step in this journey of ours. You see, the beautiful thing about Ariel is that he always comes to provide knowledge, to give strength, to bring light, to offer hope, because he tries to put us in an active, positive, and constructive condition, not in a destructive position of fear, anguish, and all of that. In other words, we must face reality. We are not saying that things are going well here. Things are not going well at all, because they are heading towards an unfortunate and inevitable bad direction. This has unfortunately been confirmed by Eddie. We will see more later. But what can we do? So let's start with what we can do individually. Exactly what does he say? We have a problem. You have a problem. We, here on earth, have a problem. We have the men in power whom he calls back the men of terror. There are men of power who are men of terror, and then there are men of power who are men of heart. Now, you understand that the problem is who holds the cards in the game with which they can act and have power. It is truly human, and this is what makes it very important for our vision. We need to understand this as well, to read reality, to read the facts. So, as you can see today, look at the news today. We know what will now unfold as a result of today's events. With this killing that has occurred, the attack where the head of Hamas was killed. So, what will happen now? What will it mean? There will be a retaliatory action, and it is a spiral that pulls ever further downwards, and in that direction, meaning we are not moving towards peace. Therefore, we must look at this, but we also need to confront these facts. We should not simulate fear or terror, because there are already men of terror and power. As Ariel says, there are men of power who are men of terror. They call them, he said, we call them the men of terror and not of power. Then there are men of power with heart. And so we, I repeat, must do nothing other than first enter into a state of awareness, what he asks for, and knowledge, in order to embark on an evolutionary path. What will it lead to? Because one might ask, why should I go through this evolutionary process? All right, but what is it that leads me to this evolutionary path? It's not that. The outcome will simply be the enrichment of our ego. No. In other words, an evolutionary path must be a journey that leads us to an opening of knowledge, because it is the opening of knowledge that allows us to see things from a more coherent perspective and gives us the opportunity to utilize the tools at our disposal, as in this case where I am here acting as the press office of the high plans, relaying to you what I have noted from our long conversation. Therefore, I will share the insights that we can experience in light of our evolution. We have no evolution, we only have fear. We are there in front of nothing, at something we cannot even interpret. Yes, of course, we certainly cannot have the keys to these rooms in our hands, but we must know what power we can bring to bear. Yes, and so we must do it, and it is our duty to do so. We have hope, because the beautiful thing about this conversation with Ariel is that, in the end, for me, it was to understand that no matter how things go, there can always be a way. There can always be a way. We will see it now. We will see it again in the passage that is further on when he talks about the system. When he talks about the system, he says, well, on earth, you have a bit of a problem. Your men in power are like this. So you need to become aware and you need to evolve. You must not live solely through, only by going through that time, right? Regarding your existence, those who know me are aware that I always say this. You cannot go through this time of your life. You can do it because, in reality, everyone is free to exercise their free will as they wish and to do what they want with their time. However, it is certain that if this time is meant for the evolution of our soul, and if we live this time without taking advantage of it, without experiencing these experiences, thus experiencing with our soul, here, in this dimension, in order to evolve, we miss out on opportunities. Let's go back. Yes, that's fine. We have gone through all this time, but in the end, we haven't put together a few crumbs from this experience. So he says, in short, you need to realize how important the topic of evolution is, thinking that evolution will lead you to a more advanced level of consciousness, and you will have, let's say, as a reward, an opening for knowledge. What else could we desire more? Beyond matter, knowledge. What is the highest aspiration we can have, transcending all the material aspects of physicality, knowledge? And here, I must say that our journey is very important, in the sense that every now and then I reflect. This afternoon I was talking with a friend of mine who said to me, of course, your life is really a life like others. She sometimes tells me, why don't you write a book about your life, all the things you have experienced? No, I have other things to do in my life, but one thing is absolutely, certainly certain. I understand the importance of the knowledge that is brought to me by Ariel, that is, by more than 23 years. It is in contact with Ariel, with the possibility of receiving this information, all the answers to existential questions, those that may arise from events and occurrences, and being able to engage, as I have been doing for the past 23 years, with an entity that calls itself Ariel. It is not my name, but they do not identify themselves by name. They do not identify themselves by name. And this discussion about names, I reiterate, is something that has been created by man. They do not belong to them. They do not. For themselves, they do not identify by name. They recognize each other by their energy. So we are still attached to the trappings of the mind. And what do? They use what? Then serve our mind so that we listen to what they come to tell us, the help they come to give us. Always that part of those who are in the light, because we know that there are also those on other planes of existence who are not on the side of the light, who come even with flattery, with deception, who may even grant you powers. So let us not forget Fausto, and so there is also this discussion. However, the difference is that they never ask you for anything. Those who are in the light never ask you for anything in return. He has always left me in total freedom, even when I have gone through some unpleasant experiences, where I received attacks from those on the other side, as he explains to me. Every now and then he tells me, just the other day he said, that those who bring the light are obviously destined to suffer attacks from those who are more on the other front. But my reflection is precisely this: when we have the opportunity to receive knowledge from planes that are more evolved than us, and we have such an opportunity, it is truly a bonus that life is offering us to evolve, that is, to enter into a knowledge. I repeat, that is evolved, and it is knowledge for our own good, and for other reasons. In fact, first of all for our own good, because I do not forget, when I finished writing Tomorrow Two Wings, that verification, when I was told that it was practically Tomorrow Two Wings was released in 2013, it was 2012, because then I gave it to the publisher, so it was 2012, and I was told that the knowledge they had given me back then, that is, at that time, they had not yet shared in the contacts they have on Earth. They have given it. It's not that I have the exclusive. Also because I know very well, fortunately, that we are now diverse in doing this. It was a bit of a call from those who provide the service, not from those who do business, the merchants. Those who serve have entered the field. That is, many. And I also see for myself that there is a coming together, a meeting among those who are driven by these intentions. I remember that they told me that this knowledge had not yet been given in the contacts they had on Earth. Then I also remember asking them, yes, but how many of us really have contact with you? And he replied, well, there aren't many of you, but those who are necessary, he said in 2012. And then I remember asking him, but why did you want to give this knowledge to humanity? And he answered me, because humanity is in great difficulty. It is the only way for humanity to save itself, to enter into knowledge. You see how it always revolves around this thing, entering into knowledge. And so knowledge is our highest aspiration. It is not houses. It is not objects. It is not success. It is not the ego. It is none of these things. What should be our aspiration at most is to be able to access knowledge. So when we have the opportunity, when I say my story is this, and I know that I have been here serving for over 23 years, it is because I understand that my story is this, Everything I did before was just preparation, from studies to work experiences, all to be able to do what I have been doing for the past 23 years, which is to bring information. But it is information of evolution, not information of proselytism. You. No, it is a task of my soul that I try to carry out with great humility and also with firmness in the face of certain things that, as Ariel says, I am their warrior. So, having information from these levels is what makes the difference, in my opinion. Knowledge that comes to us from such a precious and high level. So their information is what makes the difference. That's why I am happy and content as I am now, because I know that I am fulfilling my duty, that I am trying to carry myself forward. I hope to do it in the best way possible, to truly always be very helpful for your lives, not for my life. I don't need anything. I would need to rest a little, but it's not possible for me, because now I know that it can't be done. And so, it is important for you all. This is why I do things this way. The network allows me to reach many people for free, to be able to provide help when we hold the in-person workshops, which are things that Ariel wanted in order to give you the opportunity to have the in-person experience, which is a different experience. Those who have done it know. We need to request a participation fee. That is necessary for us to cover expenses and keep the association running, which must organize the network. The network is extremely important, and I am happy when I handle the press offices of the higher plans, because I know that I reach you and many others from anywhere in the world at any time of the day, and all of this is at zero cost. So you cannot say that you do not have opportunities to exploit, just as when I created OUCS, the University of Knowledge. During the lockdown, I also wanted to create free opportunities online for people so that they could have the tools to evolve. So here it is, and this discussion about evolution is very important. Therefore, when we organize the stages, please try to come. We will restart again. We had to slow down a bit because starting with the channel involves quite a few things to do, and we are all very busy. However, we will get going again. It's not easy, even when it needs to be done. I know you would all like to have the stages in your cities, but we cannot do that. We will at least try to reach the south, as many have requested it, but please understand that moving with the staff and everything involves costs. So, we have to manage that. But we will also make it happen. We will get there too. So don't worry. Ariel says that we still need to do the first levels, to open up to more people in order to advance the souls as much as possible, right? Because that is the point, isn't it? In other words, we are starting to do the stages solely for the same and only purpose of service for evolution. So we will begin again with some initial levels, and then we will also have a second one. The south, as we have seen, is much more expensive than the north for organizing things, but we will also do something in Rome right now. There is chaos because of the Jubilee. They have gone mad with the prices and everything. However, we will get there too. But I know that what is important to understand is that all of this is guided by them. Meanwhile, regarding the season for doing the stages, think that on Monday, the 29th of July, 2024, 2 years before, on the 29th of July, 2022, Ariel told me that I was very good at doing my job and that my soul still had 2 projects to carry forward. So, There he told me to create a group that E wanted to meet. Men can personally make the souls live and speak directly to them, or you know that. Sometimes he asks to come, and when he asks, it's for good, because there's something at stake, right? Do you remember? The first time 11/11 of 2023, was it? Right. No, from 2022, the 11th of November, 2022, then we did it in 23 for. This year, when he asks why he must provide support, I understood this. And so in this, he also offers an opportunity, but it is a different experience from that one, and ask those who have come about the experience they have lived, and I always follow their guidance, and the fact of working in synergy and elaboration, doing things in cooperation between heaven and earth, realizing here the things that are asked of me from other planes of existence. It is a very unique experience. Also, quite challenging. Believe me, it's not that easy for me anyway. Everything is not so straightforward when it comes to doing certain things. But I will not stop, Anne. I will move forward. I know I have to do the task. However, I am interested in knowing that the help I can provide to you is of the highest level, because it comes from those planes of existence that truly care about our evolution and are doing something for us, through us, or rather, through those like me and others who have accepted to provide this service. I do not work. I do not sell a product. I provide a service, and this is something different. Therefore, it is important for you all to remember that even in evolutionary paths, you must seek out those realities that truly offer you an opportunity to evolve. So, let's move on to the questions right now. He reiterated to me again that this journey we must undertake is indeed important, but he says that, yes, truly remember this, that in most cases, we undergo our evolutionary path when we are in a state of suffering. Unfortunately, for you, it is just like that. I was checking to see if I had forgotten any notes, because he talks about the importance of bringing help, bringing knowledge, and bringing love. So, that is the task we are trying to carry forward, or at least, I am speaking for myself, and also for Ricardo, who they have chosen as my new modem, with whom we will walk together until the end of my days, not his, because I will leave before him. Ariel has also made it clear that he will be here as long as I am, because when my time is up, his project with me will also come to an end. However, there will be others. Kiri is already here, and other brothers, as Ariel always says. But the important thing is that we bring love, knowledge, and help, and all of this is done, I repeat, with great simplicity. He told me something he has never said in these 23 years. In the meantime, I thank you because I see that many of you are here. I have looked at your comments. But first I want to share what Ariel told me. He mentioned something he has never said. In these 23 years, specifically, about the service and how it should be carried out. He talked about how certain things cannot. He bargained. Then he talked about money. And said, I made a joke, because Ariel, as usual, is always very funny. He said, if you have enough money to buy a spaceship and travel around the universe, you will see that Earth is the only place where money exists. On other planets, money does not exist. And I said to him, Ariel, but this is news. We have never talked about this. He smiles. If you have a bit of money to buy and build a spaceship and travel to other planets, you will discover that money exists only on Earth. It exists only on Earth. Here, in fact, it says, my dear Anna, that money exists only on your planet. If by chance you have the opportunity to buy a spaceship, or if you buy one on purpose, you will see that in other dimensions and on other planets, money does not exist. This is also news, isn't it? Very interesting. Let's move forward again. I ask him questions about the current situation, especially because I say, well, from what you told me, that you will open great portals of light in August, so it implies that, beyond the fact that, as we have already seen before, they could also just be a representation, but a metaphor as well. It is presumed that there will probably be war, scenarios where many people will die, and thus many souls will depart. So, if you told me that in December, in 8 months, we will open, and we are now in August, I expect that things will happen in August, and he tells me that August will be the beginning. And here we are today on the 31st. You have seen what has happened, haven't you? It says, here in the month of August, yes. I tell him, that is to say, there will be things of war. Right. War events, right so. He tells me yes, it is the beginning. It will be the beginning, he tells me. They are small. They are hotspots. Situations that you call. Here it wasn't quite understood whether they were trivial or unresolved. Right, here they should be more unresolved, but it would seem trivial from the recording. Even for you, you know that. I have been recording everything for over 23 years, so I have all the recordings with Ricardo. We always record. He tells me that we start from the Middle East, and there will be sparks that will come from the Middle East. He says that the discussion will also shift towards the union with Russia. These are the two hotspots that we know exist. And for him, when he mentioned it a month ago in a channeling, he told me that we in Italy would not have any repercussions. I remember that he told me, but you won't have tanks at home. There you go, he doesn't say it. Then the war that will be waged will also be fought with different weapons, right? And he had also said a month ago, since Ricardo lives in England, when I asked him about Italy, he told me that we wouldn't have such repercussions, but we wouldn't have tanks in our homes. And then he referred to England. And then he reassured Ricardo by saying not to fear for himself, for his loved ones. And so the scenario he has outlined now is practically the first beginning in the Middle East, followed by an expansion into Russia, which will naturally provoke a response from NATO, which will mean Europe and will also mean Italy. I asked him if there would be states, if there would then be attacks, and he said no in Italy. He said no in Italy, which means that Probably there might be others around. And then he said that there will be many. So, a month ago, he said that there would still be many countries at war in the end, and he confirmed all of this. He then mentioned that there would be countries experiencing upheavals. Even from an economic standpoint, there will be nations, some countries that will undergo significant changes in those realities, and they will be greatly affected. And then he also talked about the direct changes that I would say will occur in some countries and states where life will change radically. There will also be significant issues regarding important variations, including concerning currency. He mentioned that there will be important changes regarding money as well. So I also asked him if this whole plan, which is leading towards a dematerialization of cash, is clear. It seems that there is a framework that will gradually lead to the dematerialization of cash to digital currency, to a condition where it will be enough to click and you will have nothing left. A rather dangerous condition, like a system that is moving in that direction, which can be extremely dangerous and pose a significant risk to health and safety, and potentially life-threatening if not addressed in a timely manner. Excuse me. Then you know, when I start to act, do much like a journalist, and begin to dig deeper, there will also be issues regarding food supplies and medications in certain realities. At one point, he told me to wait, then turned his head to one side, and then turned his head back towards me, and said, "They are telling me that I can't tell you everything." How does it usually happen? I receive insights, not just me, but also other people. Those who live experiences like mine, who have a soul with the task of doing these things. We are not told much more than that. Rightly so, we are not told much more than that, just as we, in short, do not have to. That is, these are already pieces of information. In fact, he says that at that point he tells me, those who are close to me, those who are above me, have told me that I cannot give you too much information, because most of it has already been disclosed. Then he reminds me that, as he has already told me, there are hands, he says, that could press these buttons, and that they should not do so. So, when he speaks, as he said some time ago, that there were already hands on the buttons, because you know when certain weapons need to be launched, someone has to press that button. And so he said that some time ago, the hands were already on the button, but they stopped. Here, it seems that they will not stop. It appears that there is a delay, and we hope, I'm not sure. In fact, he says that it is always very much linked to free will. They always hope that man, with his free will, can hold back, but the direction is towards war, because the intentions, he said, are these. It was 2 years ago when he told me this. And he tells me that, however, he said, the weapons have changed now. And here he started talking about biological weapons, and said that things have already been done, that biological weapons have already been experimented with. He spoke about climate manipulation, which is something that has already occurred. And I also asked him if this climate, the things we are experiencing now, are perhaps the effects. I asked whether man, by intervening in the climate, in this way, may have reached a point of no control, where he can no longer manage the effects of this action. And he said that it is already happening, and that is all there is to it. The man plays with the climate, and yet he can manage it. He is able to handle the adverse effects of these operations, and in this, he has confirmed everything. He said that they have already manipulated the climate, and that what has happened to us is already in effect. He said that as if they had already done a pre-launch. In this way, they have already conducted tests. They have already carried out trials. So, things have happened. I asked if the things that were done have occurred, and he explained to me that unfortunately, we are now experiencing the effects of things that have already been done. So, I asked about the fact that without being accused of conspiracy theories, but looking at the facts and reality, we know that there are few who hold power, right, and on everyone. So they can afford to have markets in their hands, right? Well, it's about deciding for the masses. To put it in very simple terms, there are few families that hold power. We know this. What are the realities that hold power? What are the realities that can influence, that can decide for us, that can undermine the exercise of our free will? We talked about health issues indeed, and we thoroughly discussed the fact that something is being prepared that is not at all pleasant. Now I will also try to give you some more detailed information, because until today each state was free to decide regarding the health of its citizens. However, there are now things at stake that I won't go into right now, but many may already know about them. In any case, we are truly at risk of losing our freedom. We have already seen some evidence recently, but I hope that we do not go beyond that evidence, and indeed there is no attempt to impose on states through a World Health Organization an obligation to subject citizens to certain practices. I hope it really doesn't come to this, but for now we need to delve deeper into this. So, I will leave you hanging a little longer because I want to be able to address this topic with all the right tools in hand to provide you with the correct information. So, having also addressed this topic of health, everything is right. Here, we have then arrived at the crucial point, which is what is the key to managing all of this. What is the key? Because even in the face of a situation like the one I just mentioned, he told me, solutions come in two forms. One is within the system or outside the system. And I said, there is probably a scenario in which, in the future, if certain things that we have already begun to see very clearly happen, the future scenarios will not even allow us to remain outside the system. And then, he said, it is in this that I repeat, I have remained. So, in my reflections, in short, the final point of this long conversation of ours is that the only true key is, indeed, knowledge. As Dulce says, he has come to an analysis in which he said one can be within the system. He states that one can be within the system and still be different while being in the system. What does diversity consist of? Knowledge. The key to everything is knowledge. And I must tell you that even this image of Nelson Mandela keeps coming back to my mind, of him who has been for 23 years. How long has it been 23? 25 years in prison in this 3x4-meter cell. And he said he was a free man. So, when he said one can be in the system and still be free, what is it that gives us freedom? Connection. You see, in the end, he always gives you hope, a chance at life. In fact, he says exactly this. He says, I am going to take his words. He referred to me, and he said, it is enough to be different. You are different too, but you have knowledge, and you are different. This is the true key, he said. In other words, one can be part of the system while still being different. Stay in the system, you are different and unique. And you will always be able to find what he has said in this way, regardless of the situation or the obstacles that come your way, in various circumstances, no matter what you face. This is also important in moments like these, just as we experienced during the years of 2020, which we all remember. What is it that we can do? Because I always ask myself how I can be adequate for what time presents me with, and how I can be suitable for events and occurrences. Therefore, we have an analysis regarding Italy, among other things, which also made me smile a bit. Because it was said that our Italy, our land, is much better than how it has been represented in the past by those who were supposed to represent us. So, for the first time, I felt it was almost like political critique, and it was mentioned that we will not have certain situations that others will have. So, let's say that we will be fortunate compared to other nations based on what he has said, that we will certainly witness events that we will only discover by living, as the good Battisti used to say. However, the important thing is to know how to confront ourselves in a way that is appropriate to the facts and occurrences, and he has truly provided a great key for interpretation and alignment with what it means to be present in history. To be present in history, I think that we are very fortunate in a situation like this. That is my reflection. Look, I make it as if we were all together. In short, there are many of us, and I thank you. Now I will try to look at some of your comments. I apologize, but my urgency this evening was to give you all the information that he gave me, and now I have reached the very last page. So I am glad that I did not overlook everything that was important to tell you, but I truly believe that we are very fortunate to be supported by such help as this, because they are so earthly and so spiritual at the same time. They give us a chance to respond as human beings, as earthly, terrestrial beings, but they invite us to remember who we are, spiritual creatures with great potential and great power. So, what is it that he? Because, in the end, I told him, I said, well, it won't be easy to say. He told me, but you will be brilliant as usual. And then he said, because you know you have to bring hope and truth. And I said, well, it's not that easy to reconcile hope and truth. Truth with scenarios like these. Well, it's not about bringing an exquisitely beautiful message to the people. No, it brings a thought directed towards a scenario that is not one of light, love, and joy, but rather the opposite. However, humanity indeed needs this time. I have reflected on this and told myself that we truly need this to make this leap, and everything we will experience will be so determining and important for our evolution. Therefore, we should be grateful for what will make us suffer, as usual, because from suffering arises evolution, just as many of you know the evolution that is actually experienced. One lives when faced with a trial from an emotional perspective, and thus we experience great suffering and a significant opportunity for growth. And the same will be true. Here, someone asks me, but is faith moved by mountains? And of course, we know what we have said. We know our value. Think, remember the value of prayer. And yes, we also know this, that our friends, the brothers of the universe, will watch over us and will not allow man to destroy the planet. They will never allow this. Ari said this many years ago. He said humanity may come to an end, but the planet will never die. The planet Earth will not die, and they will prevent it. This has already been said by other brothers of space. Last week, we had Valenti in the living room, who is the biographer of Eugene Siragusa, and he also went around speaking to heads of state, to the powerful, to tell them to stop, just as Damsky did, with nuclear experiments and all these things. However, we are special observers. Let's put it that way, because we also have a significant destructive potential. In fact, I sometimes think that perhaps we are among the most dangerous. We are a presence that can jeopardize balances, and therefore, we must certainly understand that we have those who help and protect us. However, I have also realized that they protect us by allowing us to experience what we will later need to help us grow, because otherwise we are a bit tough. It's like that saying that we grow through suffering. We could grow, not in suffering. This was a question I asked many years ago. A Darian, when I asked him, but excuse me, do we have to suffer in order to evolve? Can't we evolve in joy? And he told me that, of course we could evolve in joy, but we are made this way, and we evolve much more in suffering than in joy. And when we are well, we don't think about certain things. We think, we start to ask ourselves, but where do I come from? Where am I going? What am I doing here? When do I feel good? When am I truly satisfied, paid, with the material things that perhaps satisfy me, with my ego nicely stroked? And all these things. We don't really think about that, and we begin to question ourselves when we lose a loved one. We are torn apart by pain. We start to wonder where they are, what life is, what comes after. Is there something? Is there not? Then what am I doing here? Right. These questions. Why is this happening to me? What have I done wrong? But then who is there on the other side? So there is no one. God does not exist. Oh no, angels do not exist. Why do they allow this? If they existed, they wouldn't make me feel this way. After all these things that we already know. And so, in short, we have an opportunity for growth. So, in the meantime, we are lucky. I want to tell you, we are indeed lucky because we have the opportunity to live this experience, which I truly consider a great, great help, as they said when I finished writing Tomorrow Two Wings in extraordinary interviews with Marcandino, which we always laugh about with Ariel. He says you call us this way, that way, what's that? And then we have wings, we have feathers, we don't have those things. He says, but if it truly suits humanity to represent us this way, then they are happy. What do they aspire to? To make us walk, to make us evolve. It is the only thing that interests them because they, as Ariel says, exist to help you evolve as a race. And then we cannot imagine all that exists in the universe, in the many universes, in the many races. Now we must, first of all, in a scenario like this, remember our history, our value, and concern ourselves with putting into action everything that we have not yet used. We should not experiment with everything that is truly needed. I am convinced of this. I am also convinced that we, speaking of us as the West, have had so much. We have also used many other peoples to our advantage. We have lived in the well-being, as we define it, material, and we have exploited many territories. That is, I think we have truly had a lot. It is also possible that in our karma there is the form of restitution concerning many nations, many peoples, right? We must, however, remain clear-headed and alert to question the things that are happening. Try to gather information, but not just from the mainstream, also from other sources. Then form your own opinion, but do not rely on information from just one source. Be curious, educate yourselves, and try to understand how the masses can truly be manipulated, managed, and guided. We know this very well. As I repeat, for example, the other evening, the other day I asked Dario, but excuse me, what about these few who think they can command the whole world? Ario also said this. There are few who believe they can decide on the free will of others. And what is the weapon we have at our disposal against these? To remain in the system of being different. How? Through knowledge. Through knowledge. So understand that in some way there is always a way. I repeat, I always think of Nelson Mandela, who felt like a free man in a 3 by 4 meter cell for 25 years. He found the way, didn't he? To say, yes, we still have much more freedom than he had back then. This is the confirmation of how, indeed, we have hours at our disposal that we do not use. So why do we remain trapped in certain patterns and conditioning, you see? So, the times that are approaching will be somewhat absorbed, turbulent, and not very pleasant to behold, as has been hinted at a bit, but we can do something ourselves. In the meantime, let's do what he told us. Let's start using prayer. I mean, the point is, not that they do it. They should not do it from the higher planes. It is us who need to do it here, you see. And so, faith. Faith is primarily in ourselves, in the sense that we learn to use prayer, that we Learn to harness the power of prayer, the vibration, the field of energy of love that we can generate. Prayer, I repeat, is that of the heart. It's not about sitting there and, I recommend, saying the rosary while thinking about what you have to do. Next, here. The prayer is that of the heart. It becomes a supplication and a request for help. They come because we call them. In the prayer where we ask for help, for comfort, they come to support. And this, yes, is very important, to understand that we are not alone, but we must do our part. It's not that we can think, as many sometimes tell me, I ask my angel. But what do you do? There is the angel. I, Spirit, guides the angel, and I ask all the entities of the immaterial world that are, let's say, responsible for the evolution of souls. Therefore, who take care of us, they make our place. No, they do not make our place. They come to help us do the things that we need to do. If we then decide not to act, that is also a choice. In that moment, we choose to accept the consequences of inaction. Right, it is. Then, many times they, as I have already told you, make us experience those things that are not what we would want as help, but are those that truly allow us to become aware and evolve. I didn't notice, but it's already 11 o'clock. 11. So, I hope I have been sufficiently clear in presenting the things that Ariel has indeed said. However, being different within the system, there is always a way. There is always a way, an exit to continue living. Now I don't know. I look at some of your questions. Let's see. So, I am here at the bottom. Here. Thank you for the message. Adele reminds us that it is essential to pray and also to seek knowledge in order to evolve the spirit. But why does he not remember that we must do good deeds for the least among us, to save ourselves? Thank you. In the discourse of love, we haven't addressed everything. It's not that he doesn't say that. Actually, Ariel, because excuse me, what I do is, in fact, help others. And help others. I, personally, for example, do a lot of charity work, a lot of helping, that is, giving without wanting anything in return, right? I have been doing this for a lifetime, in many fields. I do this. I did it for 3.5 years. As well, I have left a legacy in that channel, thanks to all my work. So, I help those who are still there, those who are there. In short, I always help them, each of us, in our own small way. And do this, it is clear, the discourse of help is implicit. It is the first thing they do, and it is what we should all do. Because obviously, when we talk about living in the light, in goodness, in love, it is assumed that in this love there is care and attention towards others. Obviously, this includes the weaker ones, the most defenseless. Among the horrors we are witnessing in these times, we see what is being done to the elderly, to children, to women, and what has been done to pregnant women. I don't want to recount the horrors, the atrocities. So, absolutely, of course, we are talking about help. Will there be a new biological attack? Well, we don't know if it is already underway. You know what weapons are, and this speech, for example, he must have given me 2 years ago. He told me that No, the biological weapons he told me at least. Let's say in 2024, he must have told me at least 10 years ago. Even more, he told me. I remember. No, it's more. It will be at least 15 years. He said that they were building the bionic man who would use biological and chemical weapons, and that man would use biological and chemical weapons. So there will be weapons. And aerial. Said this a year ago, when he stated that certain weapons that have been used will no longer be used. He said, I think he mentioned this perhaps just a few months ago. He talked about when he said that we would not see tanks and such things, and there he said there will not be, you will not have a war like the Second World War. He said, different weapons will be used. Different weapons. So from biological ones there are many ways, in short, to exterminate. Think that they have already conducted experiments. Even with the military, they have done experiences with the military. So unfortunately, there are aspects when we enter the military field that are totally outside of our logic. In the end, in Wuhan, they said they were making biological weapons. This virus that leaked out. In other words, they were biological weapons that they wanted to create in that laboratory. Then we have scenarios. I don't want to go back over certain topics to avoid adding another burden, but still. Regarding being awake and questioning things, one must know a bit of history. For that reason, I tell you, look into it. Don't just follow one source, or those who are all very aligned. Marina, Elzas, good evening Anna, we must do our best Anne, the impossible afterwards to God. Surely prayer is a good meeting point between God and our soul. Well done Marina, this is so important massages. Lately, I find myself praying with simple words. My Father who art in heaven and dwells in my heart. Help my soul, reach your heart and repropose. Beautiful. I like this intention. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the message. All right, we've already read this. Anna Doggy, I will pray that we may draw not more from pain, but from the wonder of creativity. This is also a beautiful intention. Ignorance creates chaos, not knowledge. Well, of course, we know that it is important, don't we? Ricardo, thank you all. He thanks Anna, Ricardo, and all the staff. Then from there, the headquarters, but it was there. Our Mara Macri, hello, Mara, will soon return with our great Bruno groaning. But my question is, for example, if they release a virus, could we be affected by it? Do you make me remember, Eva, yes, IVA. You make me remember a question I asked during the lockdown when I had people calling me in tears, going to get vaccinated or they would lose their jobs. This is a despicable thing that was done, truly despicable. If I think about the rights that were taken away, I mean, everything is not just passing by like that, despite a whole series of documents and things that have come to light. I haven't seen anyone, not even at Spara, among those who have committed abuses, where we had some terrible situations. I think of people who have died. I mean, I shouldn't have to think about these things, especially because, really, for me, sometimes it's how can I say? Fortunately, I am a balanced person and I have been managing all this for 23 years. That's why it's a sort of schizophrenia what you experience in a relationship like this, where he tells you. You ask the questions, he answers you, then you look at the facts and things come back around. The accounts add up. Ricardo is still there, amazed once again, because he says it's incredible. Aria never gets it wrong. Of course Aria never gets it wrong. Because she can't get it wrong. She can't get it wrong. But, I repeat, there are moments when it is not easy to live this schizophrenia where he tells you things. Reality presents another, yet you know that later, the facts confirm what he has told you. When it happened, for the first time, you know, the first time we worked, on the 8th of June, 2020, what was the response that alien gave me a week after the curfew ended, on the 31st of May, 2020, when I asked him to tell me what is happening on Earth? The response was they only did a test. They will do it again. I mean, it's not easy when it comes from other planes, from other dimensions, all of this. Then you sit there and observe reality, and reality delivers truths that are aligned with those that have been told to you. I remember saying, with a certain irony, here he is, the conspiracy theorist Arcangel, coming to tell me these things, but I asked this question because I had already been asking myself questions. And I was thinking there are things that don't add up here. Too many things that don't add up. I was already asking. I was inquiring at the time, asking to see what the protocols were, the nomenclatures, everything that could, in some way, provide indications. Where was it written? Which literature said that one should use tachyphylaxis, the vigilant wait? It was nowhere to be found. I asked people who are knowledgeable about this. So they are linked to the major journals, like Lancet and all those that are the official bodies, the most important ones. In other words, it wasn't written anywhere in the literature. What was available regarding SARS-CoV-1 provided indications. For the medications that they now say include anti-inflammatories, antibiotics, and so on. They had treated SARS-1 in this way. And why in SARS-2 do you not treat with those medications that showed good results in SARS-1 and use something that is not stated anywhere to be useful for a SARS? And then why not open the corpses and see what they have always done? What were they doing during the epidemics? The first thing that was done was to open the corpses and examine them in an attempt to understand. Only thanks to those who began to open the corpses have certain things been seen. Then vaccinations are never carried out during an epidemic, so why do them? These are simple questions to which they have never provided answers. The so-called official bodies, however, you must understand that the system plays hard, as Ariel says, but knowledge is what allows you to remain within a system. Understanding, right? So here is also a future scenario, that is, learn to look at reality, but above all, to also look at history, because narratives change according to interpretations, and at that point, one must go and listen here and there, and then form their own opinion. Use your brain, use it. Don't be sheep that follow without perhaps asking questions. Ask yourselves questions, inform yourselves, be curious, show yourselves, and then really, you know that knowledge, the kind that allows you to make the leap, is type of knowledge. In our case, I repeat, we are very fortunate because we really know that we have a source to draw from, and look, that is a much more reliable source than the one here, that is here. So, we see that it is excused to someone, 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 we see that it is excused to someone. Let's see a few more questions. What does Ariel mean by knowledge as means of defense? Here's Monica. That's what I'm saying right now. I am saying this now. Anyway, it is a question that gives me the opportunity to reiterate. How can I defend myself in the face of certain scenarios? I will finish by telling you what Ari replied to me when, during that time, people were calling me in tears, saying that they had to go and get vaccinated, which they did not want to do. And so I asked Ari, I said, Ari, excuse me, but what about the people who cannot exercise their free will because they are forced to do something they do not want to do? He told me that, in the face of certain scenarios, one must simply embrace their destiny and pray. Extreme position, isn't it? Right in front of such extreme situations, that is, at that point, to embrace. I have always told everyone, look, just go with your thoughts and you will be fine. Then I have always prayed for all those who called me that. They say, let's hope they receive the placebo dose. Right, let's hope they receive the placebo dose. There were doses of placebo, so they say, let's hope he gets that. We believe that this will have positive effects and not negative ones. In other words, we need to somehow take action, and afterwards we shouldn't think that. It's a bit like all the persecuted, those who were killed at a certain point. What were they doing? What were the concentration camps doing? They were stealing. Of searing, embrace your destiny and pray. In front of certain things. What else can you do? Or you are in a situation as it is. You are in a system. You seek. You are in that system and you try to defend yourself with knowledge and therefore find ways to. There have been people who have continued to remain in the system but have found ways not to submit to certain practices. There are those who have been able to do it, and there are those who have not been able to do it, and therefore have had to submit. But I invite you to remember one thing, because this is also a question I asked her. All those who have done these things, the people who have abused the free will of others, have forced us into these situations. Karma does not make exceptions. Perhaps they may get away with it in this reality, but when it comes to the reckoning that is beyond the planet Earth, at that point, everyone will have to face their own conscience. Do not forget this. Remember that that is the true court, the one of the soul, and it does not make concessions, and there one does not. That is, you can get away with it in the courts of the earth, but in the court of the soul, there is absolutely no escaping. Remember this too. This is also a way. This is also a way. I remember it every now and then. That is, I was scammed by people who don't pay, because when they are people laying at tables in front of a judge, they are gambling addicts. They suffer from gambling addiction, but they are not gambling addicts when they deceive and scam and act like seasoned professionals. A. Ariel said this thing. He said, those souls, when they come here, afterwards they have to face condemnation in that court, but in the court of the soul. You have already been condemned. As soon as you do it, you are condemning yourself. At the moment you do it. So do not forget. And really, even for the things that are also thought about, the facts, that is, the murderers, those who are released immediately, so that perhaps the parents come to bring them under the window. Free. The murderers of their own children. While those who are serving a life sentence until they remain here on earth are their loved ones, their parents who do not stop suffering from that injustice, that horror they have seen perpetrated against their loved one. But, really, even there, what is the only way out that they have? the mind above all above, or the mind must, so, skilled in the knowledge of understanding that there is nothing to be done on that front. You know that there is already a justice in action, because those souls have already received their sentence written, because afterwards they have to experiment on the other side. So, I would never want to be in their place. And so having this kind of awareness is important. This knowledge becomes a weapon, one that can combat madness, for example, because many minds cannot bear certain pains, and will therefore go mad, even in our scenarios, already in things that have happened, but also in certain things that may happen. There may be scenarios of people going mad in the face of certain injustices that will be generated. On the other hand, madness in certain strong realities is also an escape route. It is a way of salvation, isn't it? In the face of a great shock, a great pain, one of the unacceptable and horrific scenarios, madness becomes the way out. The mind that finds a form of survival in madness. So, in short, that's how it is. Now let's look at a few more questions. How can we defend ourselves from biological attacks? How can we defend ourselves against biological attacks? That's a bit of a discussion because, for example, one thing that isn't talked about much is water pollution, the discharge of radioactive water from the cooling of nuclear power plants, which then seeps into the aquifers and eventually flows into the wetlands. We already have a compromised balance and can only try to preserve ourselves as much as possible. To try to preserve ourselves as much as possible by being careful, but I understand that it is not a simple aim. But for now, let's start by focusing on the present, on the things we have, shall we? In the meantime, I can tell you this, I will always be ready. And this is a promise I make to you. I will always be ready, just as Ariel is ready. When the moment comes, he asks to speak to me, because it is time to bring help, and I will be ready to do my duty. So let us move forward. Let us walk. Let us walk together, and you should be reassured by the fact that I will always be there for you to fulfill my duty, my service. And therefore, when there is a need, I will be there. When there is a need, Ariel will be there, and this is already a great comfort for us that should give us confidence, as Ari says. In truth, looking at the facts, but strong in this awareness and, above all, strong in having understood the importance of having certain knowledge, because it is our best weapon even against bacteria. Our energetic position is also generated by a knowledge that creates different vibrations in our body compared to those who live in fear, anguish, and depression. Having this means having a body with its own balance, and therefore also a much stronger immune system. And this alone is a defense against biological weapons, because if we have a good army, we have the tools to defend ourselves. So this is also a good resource for us to have good knowledge and awareness that allow us to be healthier and physically stronger, thanks to the fact that we generate a more balanced energy field and therefore better health. So, dear friends, I would say that we could say goodbye, arrange to meet, or in any case, we will see each other during this time. Right now, I am preparing some things for you. I will try not to leave you in silence for too long, and I will try. I need to find a way to rest a little because Ariel has told me that I need to rest. Just a little, but I will find a way for us to be together. All the same, okay? And so I wish you a good night. I wish you a good rest. I look forward to seeing you next week. Take these pieces of information that Ariel has come to share with us. The heart, thank you once again. There have been many of you. You have all been together. Let the information circulate. Subscribe to our channel. Support us. Here, you too can make a gesture of solidarity and service. Support us, subscribe to us, because we have seen that there are many people who watch the channel, watch the live streams, but do not subscribe. It is a gesture that costs you nothing except for a moment. In light of the volunteering that we all do for you for such a long time, this too is love. This too is walking together. This too is evolution, supporting each other. To support each other on a common path. To bring more knowledge and more evolution to all of us. So, once again, an infinite thank you. From the heart, I truly am very. There are days when I see and read the comments and I really say to myself, how nice it is. Look, they want to walk. I am happy. This was the only function of this channel, to help you grow and evolve. And so, full steam ahead, as I always say. Sleep well, rest peacefully, comforted by the thought that we are truly not alone. That amidst all this scenario, there is. You know there is a safe harbor, that there will be an Ariel who will arrive, who will call, telling Ricardo to come to me. We will work together. He will give me the information. And there will be Anna who will open the press office, and who will tell me what to do. I am convinced that when he made me search years ago, he told me that the network is a tool that will serve them in the future, and so they started to guide me in one direction. But now, as Ariel said, the project is taking the right path, so I had a technical start on one side, but now we only do what needs to be done, the task, and this channel will serve them. I know that in the future, these meetings of ours will become a moment of great service in difficult times. Here it is, and so it is important that it exists so. Let's live full speed ahead. I recommend it. I give you a big hug and wish you a good night. See you soon, dear friends. See you soon.